Hey, what is up, people? This is the Tenchi, and I thought that since the newest reboot of one of the longest-running franchises, Ninja Turtles, plus one of my favorite franchises of all time, is coming up this weekend, I wanted to do a bunch of videos about it, because I have been a fan of Ninja Turtles since I was only like 2 or 3 years old. And as I grow older, I find that I just find more and more to like about it. So I'm just gonna do a bunch of rant, rave review, and some reviews about it, starting with the first comic and the first cartoon. Now, granted, a lot of this stuff I'm just getting from memory because I wanted to have something else, but I couldn't find my material, so I was just gonna I'm just gonna wing it because really. Anyway, so Ninja Turtles started out in 1984 with the very first comic created by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, and that comic was gritty. It was violent. It was for the very first couple pages dialogue heavy. The story is it's narrated by Leonardo, and that was the thing. Big difference between the original Ninja Turtles, the 1984 and so on incarnation of the Ninja Turtles, the very first Ninja Turtles. Turtle Prime, if you will. They were taking no prisoners, no mercy. Those no nonsense turtles. They were not the campy, goofy, cartoony turtles that we all came to know and love later on in the 1987 series. And that was all well and good. Now, I found out later on why they were so campy in the 1987 cartoon series, because they wanted something to appeal to kids. The censors and the network wanted something, they were on CBS at the time. They wanted to make it more kid-friendly. And I have no problem with that, because really, if you look at the comic to what it was and have it on, in the cartoon, it is really dark. People end up dead. They don't come back. They end up dead. Well, okay, they do come back, but through other means. And it was like, okay, if you put this on TV, parents would probably be on an uproar, like, what is on Saturday morning? What do you got my kid watching all this stuff? No, So I understood that. But it wasn't until I grew older later on that, that I wanted to actually get the comics for myself. Like when I was in the comic book store, when they did reprints of the original comics. The original comics were in black and white. These reprints were in color. And I didn't know that they were out until I saw it on the shelves at my local comic book store. Now, my boy that works at the comic book store, he didn't even have to point it out. I saw it right at the door. I'm like, oh my God, how come you didn't tell me? And immediately bought the first volume. Now, he didn't have all the volumes in order, so I bought the first two that he had just to have them. I read them, and I was like, this is crazy stuff. It's like your 1980-something, action films where everybody is getting shot up, but still they don't care. They're getting either shot up or they're getting their heads cut off, or Stallone saying a crazy line, or Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's kind of like at that level. And then I'm thinking about it. I'm like, the first movie was kind of like the comic, other than the fact that that there was no bloodshed or anything else like that. There was violence. The storyline was actually cool. It went with the original comic canon, except for a few things that were changed. Like, for example, they mixed in a little bit of the 1987 cartoon series which means that April O'Neil was a reporter as opposed to a lab assistant for Baxter Stockman in the comic book. But oh yeah, and the big hair. It was the 80s, so the hair. And that was all well and good. Raphael was the really hot-headed, angry, guy that sounded like he was straight up Brooklyn, and Michelangelo, Michelangelo in the comics, he was the goofy young one for a little bit, but at the same time, he was still no nonsense. Leonardo was no nonsense. Him and Raphael would forever be button heads. So they put that in the movie. Some people apparently complained about that, but because the cartoon, they didn't depict any of it that way. But I guess a lot of people just didn't read the comics, But it was cool. Watching the 1987 cartoon series, now watching it again, I realized that some of the stuff did not make any sense. But it was a cartoon for little kids on Saturday morning. Did we care at the time about storyline? Did we care that much about character development? No. All we cared about was the fact that 4 turtles, a rat, and a guy named Shredder were going at it for some reason. And they did some campy stuff, and they did some goofy stuff, and they had catchy theme songs, and they had nice sounding voices, even though, if you watch the original cartoon series, you will see a few episodes where a couple of the voices were out of sync, or they were voiced like somebody that just spoke was voicing the wrong turtle. I don't know if they did that on purpose or if it was done later on in editing, but watching it over and over again, you will see a couple times where Raphael sounded like Donatello and vice versa. I'm not kidding. And the fact that they plan on releasing the original Turtles, the original 1987 to 1996 TV series as a whole, it got me so excited. I geeked out on that because I was like, wait a minute. I can get the entire thing because I had the DVDs. I got the DVDs, well, what they had anyway. I didn't know how much out of order, some of the episodes were. I didn't care. I just wanted to relive some of my childhood again. So, I got the DVDs, but I couldn't collect them all because a lot of them were in box sets later on and they got too expensive. I was like, okay, bills first, and then, it's one of the few downsides about being an adult. Responsibility. But anyway, I digress. The whole thing is, should I get it or should I not? I don't know. It's the original cartoon. Even my little brother, he's young right now. So watching the Ninja Turtles with him, I remember how I used to feel watching it. You know what I'm saying? And he asks questions about it. He's very intrigued about, certain turtles, and the kid's smart. So, and it's like, I'm glad I get to share something from my childhood with him. Now, he's going to grow up with the new Ninja Turtles, and from what I've seen from the trailer to the, to the little clips that they have, I think that this show will actually do well. I think it'll actually do well. It seems like they're mixing in a little bit of the comic continuity with the campiness of the original show, and putting a little bit of the darkness in there. But they got to remember, it's for kids. It's Nickelodeon. But there's some things that they can get away with, especially if you grew up with '90s Nickelodeon like me. What do y'all think? Did you enjoy the original Ninja Turtles show? Did you enjoy the comics? And what do you think this new show will bring to the table? Will it bring anything new? Does it bother you that everything is CGI? Let me know. So that was pretty much a Ninja Turtle rant and rave about a little bit of the early stuff. I'm gonna get into the movies on my next video, so watch out for that. I did a review on the reboot of the comic. I know I've said this before. I did a review about the new rebooted comic book that came out last August, and that is still ongoing right now. Still collecting that. So if anybody's interested, click right here. And I will check you out tomorrow. Okay. Peace and love. I am Elder Tenchi. and I cannot wait for this show.